How are you feeling today? Have you noticed lately that, well, something has subtly changed? Maybe a new forgetfulness has appeared that wasn't there before, or perhaps you've stumbled seemingly out of the blue, even though you've always been confident in your stride. We often attribute these things to age, fatigue, or just having one of those days. But what if I told you that sometimes, behind these small, almost imperceptible signals, something more serious might be hiding? Today, we're going to talk about the silent stroke. Sounds a bit frightening, doesn't it? But don't worry. Silent doesn't mean harmless, but it does mean it often goes unnoticed, without the dramatic symptoms we see in movies. Imagine a tiny blood clot momentarily blocking oxygen to a small part of the brain, or a tiny vessel rupture. It's like a brief short circuit in the complex system of your body. Often, this happens in areas of the brain that aren't directly responsible for movement or speech, so there are no obvious signs. But the problem is that these silent events can accumulate, like dust in an attic, gradually impairing memory, attention, balance, and even increasing the risk of a major full-blown stroke in the future. Certain things, our habits or conditions like uncontrolled high blood pressure, blood sugar spikes, smoking, excess weight, act like uninvited guests, encouraging these silent events and making them more likely. But I'm not here to scare you. Quite the opposite. I want to give you knowledge that will become your shield. Together, we will explore 6 non-obvious signs to watch out for. I promise that after our conversation, you'll better understand your body's signals and be able to take timely action. No complex medical terms, just clear explanations and real-life examples. It's simple, accessible, and very important for your health and longevity. Stay with me until the end, and let's take care of your most valuable asset, yourself. 1. Sudden problems with balance or coordination. So, the first subtle warning sign we'll focus on is a sudden, unexplained difficulty with balance or coordination. Have you found yourself stumbling more often lately? Perhaps things have started slipping from your hands more frequently? Or do you feel a slight unsteadiness when walking, especially when turning? It's easy to dismiss this as carelessness or uncomfortable shoes, right? Let me tell you Arthur's story. He's 72. Arthur always took pride in his garden and his steady gait, but over the last couple of months, he started noticing that he would sometimes stumble on the flat garden path, and a couple of times, he nearly fell climbing the stairs. One day, he spilled his tea simply carrying the cup to the table. His hand seemed to tremble on its own. His wife, Emily, noticed and grew concerned, but Arthur brushed it off. "I'm just getting old, dear, becoming clumsy." Inside, he felt annoyed and slightly embarrassed. It felt like his body was letting him down. He was used to being strong and confident, and now this awkwardness. What could have been happening in Arthur's body? Imagine the cerebellum. It's like the control center in our brain, responsible for coordinating movement and balance. Even a tiny silent stroke in this area or along the pathways leading to it can disrupt the transmission of signals. It's like interference on the communication line between the brain and muscles. The signal is sent, but it arrives distorted. This is why sudden clumsiness, unsteadiness, or difficulty with precise movements can occur. It might not be severe dizziness or a fall, it could be just this, a slight but recurring disruption in coordination. And because it doesn't happen constantly, but rather episodically, it's easy to think, "I'm just tired," or "my blood pressure must be acting up." What's the practical takeaway for you? If you've noticed yourself becoming inexplicably clumsy, stumbling more often, or losing your balance for no apparent reason, don't ignore it. It isn't necessarily a silent stroke, but it's a valid reason to discuss your observations with your doctor. Early identification of the problem can help prevent further episodes and preserve your mobility and independence. Remember, your body speaks to you. It's important to learn to listen to its whispers so you don't have to hear it scream. Pay attention to your gait, to your hands. 2. Unexplained memory lapses, not just ordinary forgetfulness. The second sign concerns our memory. We all forget things sometimes, where we put our keys, why we entered a room. It's normal, especially with age. But a silent stroke can cause more specific memory problems. We're not talking about forgetting the name of an actor from an old movie, but rather sudden difficulties remembering recent information, strange gaps where you momentarily can't recall a familiar word or even the purpose of a common object. Here's the story of Eleanor, 69. Eleanor always enjoyed doing crosswords and prided herself on her memory, but recently she started noticing strange things. For example, she could arrange to meet a friend on the phone and an hour later completely forget about the conversation. Or, while filling out a form, she might momentarily freeze, unsure what to write in a familiar field. Sometimes she couldn't recall the plot of a book she finished yesterday. This wasn't like her usual absent-mindedness. Eleanor felt confused and even ashamed, feeling like she was losing her mind. She started avoiding conversations where she needed to recall something quickly, afraid of seeming unwell. Why does this happen? The parts of the brain responsible for forming and retrieving memories, like the hippocampus and related structures, are very sensitive to oxygen deprivation. Even a brief disruption in blood supply due to a microstroke can damage nerve cells in these areas. You could compare it to suddenly having several random pages torn out of your notebook. The information was recorded, but access to it is temporarily or permanently lost, or the process of recording new information itself gets disrupted. This differs from normal age-related forgetfulness, which usually affects details rather than entire events or well-learned skills. How is knowing this useful for you? If you or your loved ones notice not just forgetfulness, but a change in the nature of memory, sudden difficulty remembering new things, strange gaps regarding familiar items, disorientation in time, it's a reason for concern. Don't brush it off thinking, it's just old age. Discuss these changes with your doctor. An evaluation might be needed to rule out silent strokes or other causes. Your memory is the treasure chest of your life. Pay attention to how it works, and don't hesitate to ask for help if you notice worrying signals. Your mental clarity is worth it. 3. Sudden mood or personality changes. The third sign might seem completely unrelated to stroke, but it's important nonetheless. We're talking about sudden, unexplained changes in your mood, or even personality. Have you perhaps noticed uncharacteristic irritability in yourself? Or, conversely, apathy and indifference towards things that used to bring joy? Maybe there have been abrupt mood swings, from tears to laughter for no apparent reason. Listen to David's story, age 75. David was always the life of the party, an optimist who loved spending time with his grandchildren and building model ships. But over the last 6 months, his wife, Helen, started noticing alarming changes. David became withdrawn, often sitting silently, staring into space. He stopped engaging in his hobby and started snapping at his grandchildren over minor things, which he had never done before. When Helen asked, he'd reply that he was just tired or not in the mood. David himself felt different. He found it hard to feel happy, experiencing an inner emptiness and irritation he couldn't understand. He blamed it on age-related aches and pains, bad weather, anything but something serious in his head. How is this related to a silent stroke? Our brain isn't just the center for memory and movement, it's also the control center for emotions. The frontal lobes and other structures within the limbic system are particularly important for this. Microstrokes in these areas can disrupt the delicate balance of neurotransmitters, the chemical messengers responsible for our mood, motivation, and emotional responses. It's like a faulty thermostat regulating the temperature in a house. It gets too hot, irritability, anger, or too cold, apathy, depression. And these changes don't happen gradually, as they might with age or stress, but relatively suddenly and without an obvious external cause. Why is this important for you? If you or your loved ones have noticed a sharp and persistent change in behavior or mood that isn't explained by life circumstances, like the loss of a loved one, moving, health problems, don't ignore it. Of course, there can be many reasons for such changes, including depression or other conditions, but a silent stroke is one possible cause that's important to rule out. Talk to your doctor about these changes. Sometimes, these behavioral symptoms are the first signals of vascular problems in the brain. Your emotional well-being is just as important as your physical health. Don't let silent signals go unnoticed. 4. Frequent new headaches or dizziness, surprisingly common sign. And here's the fourth sign, which, experience shows, occurs surprisingly often, but is so easy to ignore. We're talking about the onset of a new type of headache or frequent, unexplained episodes of dizziness. I emphasize, a new type, meaning, if you've had migraines your whole life, that's not what we're discussing. But if you've suddenly started experiencing headaches in a different location, with a different character, or have begun having sudden bouts of dizziness where the room seems to spin, especially when changing body position. That deserves close attention. Imagine Margaret, 68. She was always active, volunteering at the local library, but over the last few months, strange sensations started bothering her. Sometimes, when getting up from a chair or turning her head quickly, her vision would dim for a few seconds, accompanied by mild dizziness. A couple of times a week, she'd get a dull, aching pain in the back of her head, which she'd never had before. Margaret thought it was fatigue, or maybe her blood pressure was acting up, or perhaps it was time for new glasses. She took a headache pill, tried to move more slowly, and didn't think much of it. Who doesn't get headaches or feel dizzy at our age, she thought. So why might these symptoms be linked to a silent stroke? Headaches or dizziness can occur when blood supply to certain brain areas is disrupted, for example, in the brainstem or cerebellum, which play roles in regulating balance and vascular tone. Even a small, temporary disruption in blood flow can cause these sensations. It's like a flickering light bulb in your house. It signals that something is wrong with the electricity, in our case, blood supply to the brain, that the voltage is unstable. And while there are many causes for headaches and dizziness, from inner ear problems to osteoarthritis or blood pressure fluctuations, the appearance of a new, unfamiliar pattern of these symptoms, especially if they recur, warrants a doctor's attention. What's the practical benefit here? Don't attribute every headache or dizzy spell to age or fatigue, especially if it's something new for you, recurring, and not linked to obvious causes. This is one of those silent signals that can be easily missed, but truly deserves a consultation with your doctor. It's better for a doctor to tell you it's nothing serious than for you to miss an important warning from your body. Your well-being and safety are paramount. Don't ignore these flickering light bulbs. 5. Minor vision problems. The fifth silent sign concerns our eyes, or rather, our vision. And we're not talking about needing stronger glasses as we age. We're talking about more specific, sometimes transient disturbances. For example, sudden blurred vision in one eye that quickly resolves, or the appearance of double vision, or losing part of your field of vision, as if a small curtain has dropped over the side or top of your eye. These symptoms can be very brief and easily blamed on eye fatigue or problems with glasses. Let's remember George, 70, an avid reader. Lately, he started noticing that sometimes the letters on the page would seem slightly blurry, but only in his right eye, and it would only last a few minutes. A couple of times, he didn't notice a cup sitting to his side and almost knocked it off the table. He thought perhaps cataracts were starting, or maybe his eyes were just tired from reading. He went to the ophthalmologist, who checked his vision and eye fundus, and said there were age-related changes but nothing critical that would explain these symptoms. George felt reassured, but the strange episodes occasionally recurred. What might be behind this? Our brain's visual cortex, located in the occipital lobe, is responsible for processing information received from the eyes. The pathways along which visual signals travel to the brain are also crucial. A microstroke in any of these areas can cause temporary or permanent vision problems. It can be like interference on a specific TV channel. The screen itself, the eye, might be fine, but the problem lies in receiving or processing the signal in the brain. Since symptoms can be transient or affect only part of the visual field, they are easy to overlook or attribute to other causes. What does this mean for you? If you experience any sudden changes in vision, blurring, double vision, loss of visual field, even if they pass quickly and aren't explained by an ophthalmologist's exam, it's a serious reason to consult a neurologist. Don't think it will pass, or my eyes are just tired. Such visual disturbances could be the first and only sign of vascular problems in the brain, including a silent stroke. Your vision is your window to the world. Make sure the signals your brain sends through this window don't go unnoticed. See the world clearly and be attentive to any changes. 6. Difficulty with planning or problem solving. And finally, the sixth silent sign, which affects our cognitive abilities, thinking, planning, problem solving. Have you suddenly noticed that it's become harder to manage tasks that used to be easy? For example, has understanding utility bills become difficult, planning a trip to see your children, following a recipe, or even just organizing your day? Do you feel overwhelmed by tasks requiring multiple steps? Let me tell you about Patricia, 73. Patricia was always a model of organization, managed the family budget, and planned all meetings and trips. But lately, She started noticing it was hard to concentrate on the numbers and bills, and she got confused writing checks. Planning a simple family dinner suddenly seemed like an insurmountable task. She'd get lost in the sequence of steps. Patricia felt terribly awkward and even foolish. She tried to hide it from her children, asking her husband for help with things she used to do automatically. She felt she was simply declining, that it was an inevitable consequence of age. Why do such difficulties arise? Planning, decision-making, organizing activities, and solving multi-step problems are managed by the frontal lobes of our brain, the so-called executive center. Silent strokes in this area can disrupt these complex functions. It's as if the CEO of a large company, your brain, suddenly started having trouble managing projects, delegating tasks, and overseeing execution. Externally, everything might look almost normal, but the internal organization of processes is impaired. A person might experience frustration, confusion, and avoid complex tasks, which is often attributed to laziness, stress, or simply an age-related decrease in activity. What's the benefit of this knowledge for you? If you've noticed that you or a loved one has suddenly found it difficult to cope with familiar intellectual tasks, planning, or organization, don't dismiss it. Yes, we all might slow down a bit with age, but a sharp and noticeable decline in the ability to plan and solve problems is a reason for a doctor's consultation. It could signal not only a silent stroke, but also other conditions requiring attention. Your ability to think clearly, plan, and remain independent is priceless. Pay attention to how your internal organizer is working, and don't be afraid to seek reasons if it suddenly starts malfunctioning. My dear friends, we have looked at 6 less obvious, silent signs that might indicate a past hidden stroke. Let me repeat, the goal of our conversation is not to frighten you, but to arm you with knowledge. Noticing one or even several of these signs in yourself is not a reason for panic and not an automatic diagnosis. But it is a reason to become more attentive to yourself, to the signals from your body and mind. You have lived a long, rich life. You possess immense wisdom and experience, and you, more than anyone, deserve to live the coming years actively, with a clear head and good health. Don't attribute all changes solely to age. Your health is in your hands, and a proactive stance, paying attention to yourself, is the best way to preserve it for many years to come. Please, if anything we discussed sounded familiar, don't postpone a visit to the doctor. Share your observations. Ask questions. Remember, prevention and early diagnosis are our best allies in combating any ailments, even those as silent as a hidden stroke. Take care of yourselves, cherish each day, and know this: you are strong, you are wise, and you deserve the very best.